How's it going, everyone? I am Dylan, this is All You Can Board, and it's once again time to talk about brand new games that are upcoming, that have been announced, that I am excited about, that are on my radar. And honestly, this month's video I pretty much had figured out shortly after I did last month's video. Right away there was just a whole bunch of announcements. I guess obviously being around Gen Con and stuff, we got a bunch of announcements and new releases and things like that. And so I basically had a whole list already in my phone of what I wanted to cover in the next video. I just had to wait and, to keep a little bit of space between the last one. But needless to say, there are a bunch of really exciting games on this list. I say that every single month, and I'll probably continue to say it every single month. But specifically this one in particular, I'm really excited about a lot of these games for a variety of different reasons. And there's a lot of different games here. It's not, you know, there's just going to be a whole bunch of like two-player games or worker placement or whatever. There seems to be a good broad range in this month's video, and I'm really excited about all these titles. So we're going to kick things off with a game by Reiner Knizia, which it's always an exciting video, and one of the games I'm talking about is a new Knizia title, because really all anyone has to say to me is, hey, there's a new game coming out by Reiner Knizia, and you can pretty much stop there and it's going to be on my list to check out. So that's pretty much all it took for this one. This is Vadis, and it's actually a re-implementation of a game that came out years ago called Vadis, I believe is how it's pronounced. There's a couple things on this month's video that I feel like I'm just gonna have trouble pronouncing, but I've just dealt with that fact. Come to terms with it. So anyways, Zoo Vadis is, like I said, a re-implementation of one of Knizia's earlier titles. It's been re-themed with this zoo theme. The artwork is great. I love it. It's from Bitewing Games, which we're really excited by a lot of the stuff that they're doing. We just covered one of their titles that's on crowdfunding called Trailblazers, and they're an exciting company for a lot of reasons, and they're working with Knizia here. This is re-implementing it with a new theme, but it's also changing some of the gameplay mechanics. So the original, from what I understand, is a heavy negotiation game. That's really what the original is known for, and I don't know that I played I was about to say I haven't played a Knizia negotiation game, but then I was about to say, oh wait, I've played modern art, but I always mix up negotiation and auctioning, that kind of stuff. And I guess even though there's not negotiation in modern art, there is some of that same kind of, you know, back and forth arguing with people about price and what you're going to give and all that kind of stuff. But that one's less negotiation and more just, oh, I've been outbid by this person who wanted to be a jerk. So in the original, the thing that kind of like I said, I've never played it, but what sounds really neat about it is essentially that negotiation is so much at the core of what you're doing that everything you're trying to do in that game, it's a political theme, is essentially trying to move up to become part of the Senate. And to do that, you basically have to have the support of your competitors in the game. So it's not something you can just sort of ignore and say, oh, I'm not going to go negotiate in this session or whatever. It's pretty much at the heart of what you're doing, and only players who have a politician in the Senate at the end of the game are actually eligible to win. So if you want to have a chance of winning, you're going to have to do this to be able to advance to that Senate position. So the new game still has that same political theme, but now it's all with animals. It's more, for me personally, that's a more approachable theme for someone who's not into politics whatsoever, or just doesn't enjoy politics as a theme. To see them kind of find a way to incorporate, keep that essence still in the game, but essentially tie it all up in a theme that's a little bit more attractive for someone like me with like the animals and more easygoing theme and great artwork, has me really excited. This version of the game has been improved, or enhanced I should say, for the 3-player experience. Like I said, not having played the original, from what I understand, that three-player wasn't like the preferred count, but enhancing that 3-player game in this version and also expanding the game to play with 6 and 7 means that there's going to be a whole broad range of you know, group size that you can approach this game with, and hopefully they're all going to be really rewarding to play at and really fun to play at. There's a bunch of other changes they're doing as well, and a lot of these don't mean as much to me because I'm not even played the original and doing what I normally do when I'm excited about a new game and not diving too much into the rules until I actually have the physical copy in front of me. I don't quite know for all these things, like whether they're positive changes or exactly what the change entails, but it does say things like, you know, expand the possibilities for negotiation by introducing asymmetric abilities for all the animals, which I'm a fan of asymmetrical abilities and what they can add to a game, and you know, in terms of replayability, coming back and then wanting to try it with a different, you know, faction and route, or a different character here, or a different character in Title Blaze or whatever. All things considered, I pretty much could have read anything about this game and I would have been on board, because like I said, it's a Knizia game, so a great artwork. It's a re-implementation of a game that, you know, I hadn't heard a lot about, so it's going to be a first time exploration for me. I'm just really excited about everything to do with this game. Can't wait to try, can't wait to see where it ranks with other Knizia titles for me. You can bet as soon as we can get our hands on this, we are going to have content of some kind on the channel for you to check out. All right, next up is a game called Nightfall, and this one, kind of like the last one, it's on my list for a couple simple reasons. One, it's a Red Ravens game title, which even though I haven't explored a lot of their games, I had been eagerly waiting to get into their titles for a while. And the first one that I finally dove into was, or maybe it wasn't the first one, maybe it was the second one. I think I might have played Rome first, technically, but I'm talking like the bigger story-driven experiences. Sleeping Gods, getting that was sort of my first big step into Red Raven games. And even though we haven't finished that and we still have a long way to go in Sleeping Gods, Carlo, Braden, and I are playing it. I already know that these type of other games in general are just gonna be something that resonates with me. I like campaign games, I like story-driven games a lot, and just the artwork and the world building and everything that happens in these Red Ravens games are so good, and it's just next level. So Nightfall, being a new game from Red Raven Games, automatically puts on my list. But on top of that, we have the art being done not just by Ryan Lockett, but also by Andrew Bosley, who I really, really love as an artist. He's the guy who did the art for Everdell, and among other titles as well. I think he did Siege of Rundar, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and a bunch of other ones. So all those things that me just seeing it on the BGG hot list and saying, oh, new game from Red Raven Games, art by Andrew Bosley along with Ryan Lockett, like I'm already on board right there. But reading about it, it sounds like it's doing some really cool things in that it is apparently a team-based game, and I think it says specifically it's an asymmetrical team-based game, so each team is essentially going to approach the game differently. One is specifically the group of knights, they're controlling the knights, and the other one are the demons, and so you're going to play the game differently, approach it differently depending which side you're on, which means you have extra ways you can approach the game and try with different groups. But on top of that, it says it also features a campaign mode that's separate from this, that is for 1 to 2 players, and then in this mode you're reading stories while exploring the map, and drawing your path as you travel. And I'm really interested to see like how different that experience is from the team-based game. Like, does it very much feel like, oh, we've taken the main game that is this team-based game and re-implemented it as a campaign game for people who love that style of game from us? Or is it going to feel like it's like 2 very separate games in this box? Which one is going to kind of feel like the main game? Which one's going to feel like this additional mode? I'm so curious about a lot of this. I'm very interested to try this myself and just see how it compares to Sleeping Gods. And once I've actually been able to try games like Above and Below, Near and Far, things like that, just to compare all those experiences. Regardless, everything about this sounds really, really cool. Really all it takes to get me on board with a story-driven campaign game is for them to be doing something unique, have great artwork, and have a good theme and story from the outside, or at least what it looks like on the outside, and then I'm pretty much on board with it. So that is Nightfall. I cannot wait to try it myself. Okay, this one is an interesting one on the list because Carlo, when I told him about this, is way more excited than I am, and I feel like I'm mostly putting this on the list because of how excited I feel like Carlo would be, but also I'm just really curious. So I haven't played many Carl Chudyk games, and Carlo is a huge fan of innovation, and I've only played it once, and I had a good time with it, but it wasn't something that left this lasting impression on me. And granted, it's hard sometimes for a game to do that after one try. You know, there's games out there like Res Arcana that after a first play I was really disappointed, and now it's slowly climbing as one of my favorite games. So not having played a lot of innovation, but hearing it talked about all the time on, even on podcasts like Board Game Barrage, and Carlo raving about it. He's always having games with Braden on BGA and whatnot. When I heard that there was a new Carl Chudyk game coming out, I automatically was just intrigued because I thought, hey, maybe I can get into a new Carl Chudyk game that's going to be, end up being a classic at the same time that everyone else does, and then, not be late to the party like I was with Innovation. So this is Aegean Sea, I believe is how you pronounce it, and it is a new Carl Chudyk game, and it sounds really, really neat. So basically what's happened here is you have 5 different decks of cards that represent the Athenians, the Spartans, the Cretans, the Rhodians, and the Ephesians. I'm probably mispronouncing at least one of those. At least I bet money I am. And every card in the game is a unique island in the Aegean. And so I guess again, without looking into the rules, what it sounds like is you're basically putting this island card down, and then the other cards that you're getting, you're slotting to different sides of the card, and they're going to represent different things depending where you slot them onto the card. So it says that they can be boats, they can be temples, they can be goods, they can be the people occupying it. Goods are with points, I believe, so that's like when you're wanting to transition over to gain points with you do them as good cards. It's hard to completely discern everything that's going on here without reading the rules, and a lot of this kind of is the same way I felt about Innovation first going into it. It feels like this is going to be a game similar to Innovation that you're going to want to play multiple times to properly appreciate or to even decide whether or not it's a game that you really enjoy or whether it's one you don't like. But a lot of what I'm seeing here, including the artwork, including the way the gameplay is described on the Board Game Geek page and everything, has me really intrigued. And like I said, this is almost me trying to make up a little bit for my lack of knowledge on innovation and not having played it enough. And you know, I don't know if I'll ever come around to innovation the same way that Carlo does and has, and how much he enjoys it. There's things about the graphic design, the look of it, that just aren't appealing to me. It's hard for me to get into it. But this game seems to be doing a lot of things right from the get-go, like in terms of what I'm reading and what it looks like in the box art and all that kind of stuff, that I'm just really interested to try it out. So this is the Carl Chudyk's new game. If you are a fan of innovation or a fan of Carl Chudyk and you didn't realize he had a new game, you might want to keep your eye on this one. All right, so the next game we're going to talk about is a game called Turing Machine, and this is a really exciting one from the same company that did the game Decrypto, which has quickly climbed onto the everyone's list of top party games. And unfortunately, it's a game I still have not played. But I blame Carlo mostly for that one because Carlo owns Decrypto, and he has never invited me over for a Decrypto party. And really, if you own a game like Decrypto, I feel like the onus is on you to be the Decrypto facilitator, facilitating the Decrypto nights. So blame Carlo for that lack of play on my part. But Turing Machine, even without that association to our game that a lot of people rave about, like Decrypto, just what it's doing seems so cool and so different that I don't even know for sure whether it's gonna be something that like really resonates with me and sits on like the upper echelon of party games for me. But just in terms of the description, it just seems super, super cool. So essentially what's happening here is this game actually comes with essentially an analog computer, but no electricity, no plugging in or anything like that. Like, it is the old school style with like these punch cards that you're putting in. And like, I wish I didn't have this rule that I do with myself where I just don't want to go look at a rule book that I don't have the physical game for and start diving in too much. I like to experience that with it all in front of me. So I've looked at photos, I've looked at like the overall gameplay overview, but I haven't dug into exactly how you're, discerning the secret code here. But essentially you're trying to unlock secret codes by putting these punch cards into this little like computer type thing, and then, using deciphering behind your little screens that everyone's doing, and you're competing to try to figure out the secret code. What is most exciting about this for me and why it's on my list and I'm so excited for it now is I don't want to say less about Turing Machine in general, but just lately when I've been playing a lot of party games, I played a lot of Wavelength, I played a lot of Just One, I played a lot of So Clover, all within a short span of time. And it's not that I've never loved those games. I love those games. I love party games in general. But it had been a while since I really played party games this often. I mean, I'll blame the pandemic for a lot of that, but just in general, I was gravitating more to, more strategy to, bigger box games than these party experiences. And these party sessions I had were so much fun, whether they be with, work colleagues or some of my closest friends playing So Clover and stuff like that. I had so much fun playing these games, and it reminded me how great it is to just gather around a coffee table on a couch or around a kitchen table or whatever with a game that is low pressure, full of laughs, and just less about scoring and who wins and more about just that experience and making it memorable. And so because that's how I'm feeling about party games right now, a game like Turing Machine that's coming from a company that made one of the ones that everyone has been talking about for the last little while, Decrypto, is immediately on my radar and one that I want to get, because the last time I dove into a party game that was getting a lot of buzz was So Clover, and I don't regret that at all. So Clover has turned out to be one of my favorite party games in general, and I think that Turing Machine, everything I'm reading about it, has the potential to sort of slot in there with games that I'm going to want to bring out when we want to play a board game, but we don't necessarily want to sit down and have this big long experience or this involved experience or teach a bunch of rules or whatever the case may be. So as soon as this is available for me to get, I'm purchasing it, I'm buying it. I want to play it. I want to make content for the channel to let you guys know whether it is as good as it looks like it could be or whether it's a bust, so that you guys know whether or not you should pick it up for yourselves. So look out for content on the channel. I'll have it as soon as I can get this in my hands. That is Turing Machine. It sounds like I'm saying Turing Machine. I think it's pronounced Turing Machine. I have no idea. I've given up on my pronunciation skills, as I'm sure all of you have. Okay, next one is also really exciting. These are all exciting. Why do I always say that? And that is because this is a two-player dual version of a game that already existed. And normally, you know, it's not that I get super pumped about re-implementations of games that are going to be like, oh, we've taken this now, turned it into a roll and write, or turned it into a 2-player game or whatever. That gets done a lot, and you know, it doesn't always work out for the better. In many cases, it probably doesn't. It's probably rarer that it does. But there is one game in particular that when they made a dual version ended up being one of my favorite games of all time, and that is Seven Wonders Duel. And I feel like anytime I hear of a dual version now being made for a popular brand or for a game that maybe, you know, needed a different version of it for specifically a 2-player game because the original box didn't quite accommodate it, I do get excited because I think, you know, eventually we're going to get the next Seven Wonders Duel, the next really great 2-player, you know, dueling game that's based on a property. And maybe this one will be it, because this is Splendor Duel, and I am a big fan of Splendor. I've talked about it on the channel a couple times. It is a classic, and there's not a lot to Splendor. It's an easy one to teach. It's an easy one to come back to. It's addictive in its gameplay. It plays quick, and I just love the way it ramps up as you build this engine of jewels, and it's just always been a game I've liked. So the fact that they're doing a game that is taking the essence of everything Splendor is and packaging it specifically for 2 players is really exciting to me. I feel like there is potential here, in the same way that there was potential with the Seven Wonders Duel release, to have this be a really solid 2-player game, because you have such a great foundation with Splendor already. It's just a matter of sitting down and saying, how can we, you know, change this specifically for that 2-player count, which, you know, I actually thought the original was good at 2 players. So I think that even that makes this one have a little bit more to live up to say, hey, this needs to justify itself just a little bit more to exist. Again, I don't know all the you know, the actual in-depth rules about the game, but what I do find interesting is that in the original Splendor, you essentially just had stacks of jewels on the table, and you had these rules of saying, you know, I can take 2 of a single color as long as there's a certain amount remaining, or I can take 1 of 3 different colors, or I can reserve a card and get a gold gem. On this game with this board, there's essentially this board in the table that has jewels placed on specific squares, and these squares have arrows and stuff on them. So I don't know all the logistics of how you're picking jewels, but I do know that that part of the game is changed, is different. I'm not sure if you have to follow the arrows and pick them in a certain order, or, you know, you can only, if you're taking them, you have to take them in the order of following the arrows. I'm not 100% certain, but that is kind of what excites me the most about this, is that they're taking an aspect of the original Splendor, which was the picking of jewels, and finding a way to evolve that and change that to maybe make it more exciting and have that be something very exclusive and new and different to the 2-player experience, which in many ways is what Seven Wonders Duel did. It said, you know, how do we translate this drafting game into a 2-player experience? And they built this pyramid system that works great. Splendor is like saying, we're going to take this jewel collection system and how you manage your jewels and everything and turn it into this board aspect for this 2-player game. So to me, that's really exciting. It's following in the footsteps a little bit of Seven Wonders Duel. I'm really pumped to try this out. Those are some of the games I end up playing the most, games like Patchwork, games like Seven Wonders Duel, even ones that aren't designed specifically for 2 players but play great at 2 players, like Cat Lady and stuff. I've come back to more than a lot of games in my collection. Having another really solid 2-player game, I think it would be nice to have a brand new one that does some stuff that's new and stays in my collection long term, maybe even replaces some other ones that, you know, haven't been getting played as much. It would just be a refreshing change. Not that we don't get a lot of 2-player games, but there hasn't been a lot of brand new ones that I've added to my collection. Although Caesar was one that I did add recently. I mean, Carlo absolutely loved that game. So hopefully this will be another one of those. That is a Splendor Duel. Okay, a roll and write. One of these lists would not be complete without a roll and write. I feel like I almost always have at least one roll and write, or very often I have had one. And this one is called Aquamarine. Honestly, the first thing I noticed when I saw this game on Board Game Geek was the sheets kind of reminded me, the layout of the sheets reminded me a lot of Cartographers, just in the way that they chose to lay out the main area and the kind of the scoring underneath and whatnot. But for a genre that is going to have trouble anytime a new game is released, doing something novel and unique and kind of hooking people in when there's roll and writes coming out left and right all the time, it seems like, this one does seem to be combining some elements I've seen in some other games that you know, package themselves into what seems like a unique game. And this game is essentially a race to the bottom of the ocean floor. And the way that works is you're going to be rolling 2 dice that are used by both players, those same 2 dice, and one is going to be potentially lower, one's going to be higher. And depending on which one you pick, you're going to interact with your board a little bit differently. So if you pick the higher one, you get more out of that higher value, but you lose oxygen equal to the difference between the higher value and the lower value. So depending on what the rules are, you're going to have to kind of decide what you want to do and how much you're willing to risk to try to race to that ocean floor. So, I mean, really for a roll and write, the things that I care about, the things that hook me at this point is, does it do something, at least on paper, that seems on paper that seems unique and different? Because if it's just going to be a straight like, hey, this is a really classic roll and write game, at this point I think I'm kind of beyond that. The last time I played one of those was the Lost Cities roll and write, and it just did not do anything unique enough to warrant being in my collection. But as soon as a roll and write seems like it does something that's like, hey, we're doing this that's new, we're doing this that's different. It can be even something small. That's enough to at least allow me to give it a shot to see, how well that does. Two, the actual presentation of the actual sheet itself, how it is designed, how the artwork looks and everything is important, and this one looks really good. And how they incorporate the actual, what you're rolling, what you're flipping in these roll and writes or flipping writes. It's very often where a roll and write is just roll dice and pick one, and where do you want to apply this number, where do you want to apply this dice. And there's nothing wrong with that, but as soon as you do something even remotely unique like this, where, hey, we're all sharing the same 2 dice, you roll them, you have to pick whether you're using the higher or the lower one. I'm not saying that no game has done that, but at least it's setting itself apart a little bit from some of the other ones that are out there. This game looks attractive. It has some cool gameplay stuff going on. It's a game that doesn't say it's going to take very long, like a 20 to 30 minute time in a roll and write is that sweet spot. Doesn't seem like it's going to be a complicated one to teach, and I'm always interested in new roll and writes in my collection because it is a genre that I like to have access to introduce games to people. It's just an easy way to do that. But I need to keep things fresh too and have new ones so that I can introduce new games to myself at the same time bringing people into the board game hobby with these really accessible games. So that is Aquamarine. Can't wait to try it out. And the last game we're going to talk about, I don't think is on Board Game Geek. I did a quick search and I couldn't find it. That's not where I first discovered it. I actually discovered it on Reddit. I think someone posted about it. This is coming from Fantasy Flight Games. It's also coming from one of the designers of Marvel Champions, Caleb Grace. And this is a new Star Wars deck building game. So I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. Like, I like Star Wars. I will see the new movies. I watch the shows, The Mandalorian and things like that on TV. But I'm not one of the diehard Star Wars fans. Like, for me, I'm a diehard Marvel movie fan compared to Star Wars. However, I enjoy the property enough that I'm always interested in, different licensed games and card games and things that they're coming out for with Star Wars. And I missed the boat on the Star Wars living card game that was out for a while and then I think got canceled, didn't do very well. So I never played that at all. But I always thought, hey, that would actually been pretty cool to, in the same way I'm enjoying Marvel Champions or Arkham Horror, the card game, to have done that in the Star Wars universe. Now, this game is not a living card game. This is a deck building game, competitive game. But to me, that's just it's cool that they're re-entering this card game sphere with Star Wars at Fantasy Flight Games again, because it almost seemed inevitable if you have access to that IP and you make all these successful card games and living card games and whatnot with all these popular brands like Marvel. Eventually, we were going to get a new Star Wars one. It was just a matter of whether they were going to revisit a living card game and try to find a way to resurrect it differently, or they were going to do something else entirely. It seems like that they've done the latter, but they're bringing in one of the designers from Marvel Champions, which obviously adds some excitement to me because I love Marvel Champions so much. So what I'm really curious about here is just how this is functionally going to work. Like, is this going to be a trading card game? Not a trading card game, but a deck building game that has trading card game aspects where they're going to just release new expansions. When they release an expansion, are you just going to be able to buy a product and get everything for it, or is there going to be like packs you have to buy and you're having to see what you pull out, what you get? Like, I think based on the fact that they're not calling it a trading card game, they're calling it a deck building game, that it's more likely that if it does well and they're releasing expansions, it's like, hey, you are now getting this single expansion, you get everything you need here, and you can build your decks with it from there. But it'll be interesting to see, because if it is going to be competitive, you do want there to be enough variety out there with what is available, what cards are available, and everything for people to create unique decks, so not everyone's just playing the same decks that are out there. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to approach this and what the format is going to look like and just functionally how it's going to be. But I am really excited at the prospect of everything about this. It's coming from a company that has released some games I really enjoy. It's coming from a designer who is one of the designers of one of my favorite games of all time. It's with an IP that I would like to think they're not just going to do a cash in for or not put time and effort into with Star Wars. And just Star Wars coming back as a card game product for Fantasy Flight Games is exciting. So I'm going to be following this one closely. I'm really curious to see where it goes, what comes out of it. I think it's coming out in 2023. So we do have some time, but I'm sure we'll sort of get this like leak of information, not like a legitimate leak, but just this trickle, I should have said, of information as it gets closer. We'll probably find out more about what the product's going to look like, what the release schedule is going to look like, and things like that. So really exciting that they're going to be re-entering that sphere with Star Wars, and I'll be there to check it out as soon as it comes out. That is it. Those are the 7 games I've got for you. Let me know in the comments, as always, which of these games interests you the most, which one you are excited for, or if there's any that I have not mentioned that you were expecting to see on this list or that you think I should know about. Let me know in the comments. There are a couple others that didn't make the list, but I have written down that I might include next month, or just, just missed the list and won't be on one of them. But I'm always curious to hear if there's something I've completely missed the boat on and that I should know about, because maybe it'll get featured in the next video. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you next time.